Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Terriers Top Podcast. This is now the seventh weekly review that we're doing. We're going to be covering the under-19s game, the B team game, and the Sheffield Wednesday game, and a quick kind of look forward to Brentford. This is going to be the last episode that we do until after the international break. So we will do obviously the review of the Brentford game in the next episode we do, and then that'll be fine. But we won't be uploading as much throughout this international break. So I mean, the first thing really is if you haven't seen on our Twitter page, we are hosting a giveaway. So Jack, if you want to explain that.
Yeah, of course. So again, doing another shirt giveaway. This time it is a 2021 home kit, signed, printed with Booth 23, and it's signed by Andy Booth himself, which is fantastic. Again, it's been provided to us by John Waltons, who you will have seen on the shirt against Millwall. So yeah, that's on our Twitter. If you want to, the link will be in the description, I'm sure. If you want to head on Twitter, just follow 3 instructions just to get yourself within a chance. And as they say, you've got to be in it to win it, and it's a fantastic prize for any Huddersfield Town fan. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that. So I think we'll just jump right into it with the, I believe, under-19s game against Fleetwood. And if you're on social media, I'm sure you'll have seen it. A very special goal was scored by one of Town's young prospects. So Jay, you can start us off on that.
Yeah, Brahima Diarra. Great result. I think Town ran out 3-1 winners, and he stole the spotlight, didn't he? I think he came up with a brace. And what a goal! That is probably one of the best individual goals I've seen by a Huddersfield Town player, if not the best. Obviously, Stan or Leicester away, but that's going way back. And for such a young player to have that much flair, passion, composure, and skill about him is just incredible. And I think we've seen him feature a few times. I think we saw him at Bournemouth away. We saw him in the FA Cup against Plymouth, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think it does beg the question: if Huddersfield Town do regain their Championship status this season quite early, is he one of the players that it really needs to feature in the squad, just for a bit of experience?
Well, I think that argument has to be there. I mean, the guy's a month or two older than me, I think, and to say that he's pulling things like that out of the bag and is in contention for potentially another Championship start, and say that he performed against Bournemouth to somewhat standard. That he's 17 years old. He's not going to pull out a performance like some of the senior players that we've got. That, for example, like a Bakuna that cost £10 million, everything included. It's not going to be at that level. However, given time and potentially given minutes in the Championship at the tail end of the season, in all fairness, if we can stay up and retain the status quite early, as you said, we do have some difficult games in there. So to see if he's actually at the Championship level or if he needs a lower level loan could be a move that could be right for him. We don't know that as of yet, but it's a really, really good goal. And if Bakuna is a player that leaves in the summer, if we don't renew his contract, or if we renew his contract and he goes somewhere else and our Rangers are interested in him, potentially him fitting into that role that Bakuna has played this season, if Corberan thinks that he's good enough, and over the few months that he'll obviously have with him in the off season, I think that potentially that could be a role that Diarra fits into.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll just touch on this quickly because we don't want to delay too much. But what we've been doing very well as an academy is poaching other clubs' young players. So you think Aaron Rowe, Leyton Orient is the one that jumps to mind for me. I think Tahani came from Manchester City, Jayden Brown from Tottenham. But we don't want that to happen with us because this kid looks special. I say this kid is 2 years older than me, but this player looks special. But with Brahima, you hear about it all the time. He's a central midfielder and he seems to score in majority of these games. And we were lucky enough to see one of these goals. And he's pulling roulettes out twice. He's dribbling past 6, maybe 7 players. It's astounding. And I think if we are serious about bringing youth through, we need to take any chance we can to play the likes of Diarra, the likes of Kamara, Miles Bright, Kieran Phillips at the tail end of the season, if possible. So we don't lose them, and they do see us as a genuine chance to first team football. Well, as you say, it'll be really interesting to see if he does play, how he does sort of cope. But yeah, I suppose that's all for the future for now. So now let's get on to the main event of the week, which was the Sheffield Wednesday game on a Wednesday. So yeah, going into the game, I think we were all, I don't know if we could say confident, but we all had I think they'd lost 7 in a row, so we were feeling pretty good, which is abnormal as a Huddersfield Town fan. But as we now know, the game didn't quite go that way. So Jay, if you want to talk about the opening of the game.
Yeah, completely agree. It was a very, very sloppy affair, wasn't it? I think chances came at a premium, which you wrote down in our notes, and it was just one of those games where you sat there and you thought, yeah, this is going to either be a 0-0 or a 1-1, or any team was going to be lucky to get 3 points out of it, because it was far from Huddersfield Town. I think Sheffield Wednesday will be quite pleased with the point, because they look destined for League One football next year. But we really failed to do much, didn't we? I think we're talking about the consistency in midfield. It wasn't there, was it?
No, I mean, the past 2 games, there was 2 clear systems in those past 2 games, and on Wednesday just wasn't a clear system that we kind of looked to play. And I think that is something that you've got to credit Sheffield Wednesday for. They did go out from the back and not allow us to play either style that we're kind of confident with. And that comes at a massive credit to both them, and Darren Moore has obviously done his own work on us as a side. And you could tell it was a dogfight. It wasn't a game where you thought, yeah, you know what, there could be 2 or 3 goals either side. It wasn't a game that, it could be a 1-0, 2-0. It was a game where you thought from the get-go, this is going to be a very, very difficult game, which I don't think anybody expected. And, it's something that coming into a game, we didn't feel like was going to be a potential thought after the game. But from the opening 5, 10, 15 minutes, you could kind of see there that we weren't up to our standard, and that was all due to Sheffield Wednesday, unfortunately.
Yeah, what I will say about the opening of the game is we kept the ball nicely, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was what we did with it. There was probably one or maybe 2 sort of like hints that maybe created something, and that's about it. I think Campbell had a really good chance to shoot, and instead he threw himself at the ground, which is disappointing to see. It's absolutely not a penalty. After watching it back, obviously when you're watching it live, you scream pen and all sorts of choice words at the referee. Yeah. But it was very disappointing. And obviously Wednesday, after pretty much all of the town having the ball but doing nothing with it, Wednesday opened the score. It's a lovely sort of flick through by Jordan Rhodes, and the 2 ex-Town players combined as Josh Windus puts Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 up, and it's quite a poor goal to concede. They caught us napping. Not good enough, simple as, and it did get to the point where you just sort of thought, well, they'll be desperate and they'll probably hang on for all 3 points, but that wasn't to be. So I'll put it to either of you to talk about Mbenza's introduction and how that sort of rescued us a point almost.
Yeah, I think Mbenza, in a situation when you need him, he arrived. He was brought on for creativity, early change, and it worked, thankfully. It wasn't his most beautiful set piece, but it was there. I think it was a very, very teasing ball, and I think Naby Sarr, you got to credit him. If any player shorter than him would have been on the end of that ball, we wouldn't have probably scored. And he was full wingspan, full stretch, and stuck out that massive leg of his. And I mean, it was a very, very scrappy goal. Fortunately for us, Patterson was on the end of it, knocked it into his own net, but I think Fraser Campbell would have been there to tap it in. And then you thought we could get something out of this, but credit to Sheffield Wednesday, because they did what they did best in that situation and just didn't let us get a sniff. I do think we deserved that goal because I don't think any team should have won. I think it was a very, 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 very poor game by our standards. But yeah, I think Mbenza's a really good player to have when you need that bit of creativity and that bit of injection of uncertainty for the other side. And I really hope we can keep him because I think next season, if he does stay, he'll just grow further and further.
I mean, I think it's going to be another kind of Bacuna situation where, I mean, with Bacuna, I think we've got the option to extend his contract. But Mbenza, I don't know if we do. I don't think we do. But it could be a case of we sign a contract and they leave in the summer, which would be unfortunate. But I mean, if we can get a large sum of money for the two of them, for two players that at times really do not look like Championship quality players, and at other times look like they could be potential Premier League players, it could potentially see a large amount of money coming into the club, which could be reinvested into youth players or Championship proven players even. And I mean, I just want to touch on like the kind of bottom of the table now. With that result and with the results from yesterday, we're currently, I believe, 7 points clear of Rotherham, who have 3 games in hand on us and 4 games in hand on Birmingham, and Birmingham are at 4 points clear. Well, 4 points below us. And I mean, even Sheffield Wednesday picked up points yesterday. Jordan Rhodes again involved. I think that's 3 contributions now in a week, which he does look like a good player on his day. So I mean, I've seen it on Twitter recently with people kind of debating whether he should come back. So Jack, in your opinion, what do you think about Jordan Rhodes? And he's out of contract in the summer, so do you think that's potentially a signing that we should look at, or is he too experienced now?
No, yeah, I think it's a very, very real possibility. Just from what you hear on the grapevine about Jordan Rhodes potentially coming home, and listen, for years, if you're quite a while ago now, but if you ask me who my favourite town player was, it was either Alex Smithies or Jordan Rhodes. And sort of, if you go back to my earliest days of playing and watching football, they're sort of my heroes, those two. So I think my heart says absolutely get him back, give him the 17 shirt, he's going to score 30 goals and send us up. But my head says I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. He's getting into a bit of form, but is he on 5 or 4 goals? He's definitely no more than 5.
4, I think it is.
4, right? Okay. So I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't have a problem. No, I don't think that's fair to say. I wouldn't be annoyed at it, but I think as an option it could be good. Obviously, we have got Sano going and Niasse, which is dragging on now, but it's the home stretch, but we'll touch on that in a minute. So whether them two are here next season, it would also affect the sort of decision. But he could bring something, as we saw against us, that lovely flick, so he can bring people into the game. But the jury's out for me. I'm not 100% sure. Jay, what do you think?
Much like yourself, I think you think Huddersfield Town of 2012 onwards, and you think Jordan Rhodes, and it does. I mean, I think he's one of the best players of this EFL generation. I don't think there's any doubt. He's a proven goal machine, but like you said, is it because he's at Sheffield Wednesday that he's not doing so well, and they're just not being so creative and finding him, or is it that he's slowing down? I think that's a debate for later on if the move does pick up pace. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him back in Huddersfield Town shirt, but is it the best option? I'm not sure. But I think it's the right time to move on to what you just mentioned earlier, Jack. Oumar Niasse. The B team played against West Bromwich Albion. I think it was 3-1 to West Brom. And I think the headline story was the spotting of Oumar Niasse by our very own Jack, who did some very good investigative skills. Yeah, proud moment. I think it's a breath of fresh air for all Huddersfield Town fans because it's been up in the air for 3-4 months now.
January now, yeah.
Ages. Yeah, it's been. I think there's always been that that kind of conversation around paperwork, but we've never really seen him in the flesh, and this is the first time. It's good. It's a good feeling, and as the spotter of all things, Oumar Niasse, I'll let you touch on it, Jack.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was. He didn't score. He was listed as a trialist again. He didn't score, but he was thankfully marking a corner kick, which West Brom scored from Lee Peltier. Managed to bag from that one, and you could sort of see his little tape that he wears on his wrist. And I was about to say it's nice to see him in the blue and white, but we were wearing blue and red actually. So, but yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see because we all sort of knew. We knew that the trialist was Niasse, but it's just nice to have it sort of in a picture, in a video. So, in theory, this means that he's got his work permit because you're not allowed to play games without a work permit in any capacity.
Yeah.
So this to me looks like international clearance or something along those lines. So that shouldn't be long. And again, in theory, we could and should be seeing him against Brentford, but because that is in a couple of weeks' time. So you'd hope that something gets sorted then, and that'd be nice because he has been training for a very long time. I would assume he's straight in the matchday squad. Yeah. Probably not starting, but he could probably get a half an hour run out. So I think that's all we'll talk about for Niasse, but we'll stay in that B team game for a little bit because West Brom did put out a pretty good side by the looks of it. You've got Premier League quality players there, Grady Diangana, who I'm still a huge fan of, regardless of how well this season's gone. Robert Snodgrass, who's been quality for a good long while now, and someone you might not have heard of, Carlin Grant, managed to get a goal in that game as well, which sort of stings, but it's only a B team game. Yeah. But Ben, what do you sort of think about our B team? Because 3-1, it's not great, but keeping the score respectable against that sort of opposition, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, there were a few first team players in there, which you can't really take away from us because there was Danny Ward in there. I think Alex Pritchard played as well. So there is some players of strength in there, but at the same time, even with a full strength kind of side or a little bit less than a full strength like first team, I wouldn't be happy with a 3-1 scoreline, but it's against some of the players that they've got. It's still a somewhat respectable scoreline. So to say that there's most of the players in that were under the age of 25, with obviously a few players here and there that were experienced professionals, I think it's a good scoreline, and it's only going to gain experience because if they're playing against that kind of standard of opposition, West Brom are most likely going to be a championship side next season. I think they're nearly all but confirmed a championship side. They need a few more results, and I think that's them pretty much down. But I genuinely do think that a few of the players that we saw in that B team game could potentially play against West Brom next season. Whether that is first team starting, whether that's coming off from the bench, but I think there are definitely a few players in the B team and the under-19s team that we could potentially see next season because, like you said earlier, there is a lot of good young players that we have coming through the system, and it offers a real kind of hope that we can see some of these really good young players with a lot of potential come through. So I think it's another positive, and whilst the result isn't brilliant, it's another massive positive that looking to the future, that is something that the club wants to do.
Yep, and another positive, although small, we scored a penalty. The first team player scored a penalty. I think we've had 4 stabs if you include all first team players. And Danny Ward, brilliant. I mean, we won't dwell on it, but again, little positives. I think that is all for this week's preview. So let's go on to Brentford. I think we've got 16 or 15 days at the time of recording till our next fixture against Brentford. It's going to be a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, go on, you go.
Sorry. No, go on.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, 100% it's going to be difficult. It always is against a team like Brentford. They're a well-run, well-oiled machine, if you will. Obviously, we went unbeaten against them last season. I think we were the only team to not concede to BMW, if you will. Obviously, they've disbanded since, but I'm getting sidetracked here. Yeah, Brentford's going to be a tough game. But I was saying to you guys before, I honestly, like, take all bias out of it, I do believe it is still a game up in the air because Brentford, I believe, have drawn twice in a row to relegation candidates in Forest and Derby. Obviously, they're distancing themselves a little bit now. We're at home, big positive for us as always. And if you notice, we always do better against other footballing sides, if that makes sense. So if teams look to play at us, we counter that pretty brilliantly. Swansea both times comes to mind. Norwich at home, we did okay against, obviously Brentford away, different story, but those are just coming off the top of my head. Good footballing sides, we do better against. So it'll be a test, but I think it could honestly go either way. And on the day, I think a lot of chances will be made. So I think it's just who takes the chances. And Ivan Toney is he can take his chances. We'll put it that way. So it's all about cancelling him out, I suppose. But Ben, I'll let you talk now. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think as you just said, Ivan Toney is a completely different breed of goal scorer. Really, he is the best player in the division, in my opinion. And I don't really think anybody comes anywhere close to that. You have a player like Ivan Toney on your side, you're going to be looking like promotion because I think he's got 28 goals this season. There's still 10. There's still 10 games left. I think I think he's very close to the record of goals in a season.
30. I think it was Glenn Murray for Crystal Palace.
30 is the record.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got that surely, hasn't he?
I think Well, I think he could potentially see that against us if we're not on our absolute A game, which both sides are going to have an extended period to kind of get back to fitness. Establish tactics even more than they have done already. So I think it is a massive chance that we can potentially cause one of the biggest upsets in our season. But we do need to be on our A game, which we haven't seen too many times this season. I'll be honest. We've picked up a few sloppy wins here and there. We've had the game against Swansea, but we've not really been on our A game against any of the top sides in our division. And with 2 games in Brentford and Norwich in the space of 3 days, we are going to need to be at peak fitness levels and peak performance levels. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think this break will only enhance our chances of doing that. I think one thing we haven't mentioned is the hopeful reintroduction of Rolando Aarons in this international break, which would be a massive boost because I think you've got Pippa, Harry Toffolo, Aarons, and Aaron Rowe, who really are the 4 players who go direct and take players on one-on-one. I think that would be a massive. It would just be. I think it would be brilliant for the team because we saw what he can do against Luton. I think he basically gave us that point at Luton, and you've got Aaron coming back. But I think also what's important is this man management of Ivan Toney because 28 goals and 9 assists in a season with 10 games left that's just ridiculous. Like that's disgusting figures. So I'll ask you guys: are you hopeful for this game, or is it going to be one of those games where we show potential, but we just can't get over the line?
Yeah, I'm hopeful. You might call me deluded, call me whatever you want, but I am hopeful. I've seen us batter Watford. I've seen us batter Swansea twice. The scoreline might have not suggested a battering both times, but we were the better team in all those games. I think we can turn up against big teams, and I think, in my humble opinion, we do significantly better against the bigger teams, the better teams than we do against teams around us. So I am hopeful. I don't know if I think we'll win, but I don't know if I think Brentford will win either. And as you say, it is all about shutting out Ivan Toney. I'll be very, very interested to see what we line up as because it's completely up in the air. Will we? I think Brentford generally play a direct 4-3-3, so it's whether we counter that again or stick with our 3-5-2 that's having varying levels of success. So Ben, we'll go to you.
Well, I've got kind of 3 points really. So the first one, I think, like you said, the lineup will be vital. I'm going to be very interested to see how Ivan Toney plays off against Naby Sarr. I think that could be a very, very good battle because both of them are quite physical players. So I think that potentially gives a very good dynamic for both sides. And for neutrals, I think it will be a good game because it's two very good styles of football. Once both sides are playing on their actual game, whereas if from the get go Brentford can go out and immediately stop us playing the way we want to play and just play their game, it will be a domination. Another thing with what you said about Rolando Aarons, I believe Harry Toffolo is coming back soon as well. I don't know whether that will be after the international break or a bit longer, but the fact that we can potentially see Harry Toffolo re-enter the side will be a massive boost. And even potentially Josh Corona coming back in the near future too, because if we get all those players back, we will look like a very, very, very strong side. And the final point, really, there's been some kind of controversy on Twitter over the past kind of day or so regarding the meeting with the HTSA and the board regarding the financial state of the club and kind of the aim when Phil Hodgkinson came into the club. He said that we want to be a top 30 side, and that was questioned in the meeting, I believe. And I believe that, I think it was Mark Devlin, correct me if I'm wrong, or Dave Freefall Sykes, said that within the next 3 to 5 years that we will be aiming to be at the top of the championship. And that's kind of kicked off a massive storm on Twitter. So just very quickly, I just wanted to touch on it and just hear both of your opinions on it.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of the argument. You've got Huddersfield Town, a very, very exciting project, very energetic manager, good players, and it is what it is. We just wait. But then the other side, you've got people saying we were a Premier League club 2 years ago, so we need to follow up with that ambition. It's a hard one because I think you've definitely got this financial aspect of COVID. I think COVID is a good excuse, but actually it is a real excuse. People are losing millions of pounds. I know I read Wolves have lost £39.1 million since May 2020. It might not seem a lot, but it is very detrimental.
For a Premier League club, that's a top level player, £40 million.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. It makes a big impact. I'm not one of those fans who will kind of go straight at people's throats and say you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. I think it's most definitely a process. I think we saw it under Wagner. He came in 2015 and no one knew who he was. People knew him because of Klopp. I think this is the same with Carlos. People knew him because of Bielsa. It's a project, and I'm more than happy to support the team every single week in and out, go to the games, go to away games, and just be patient, because I genuinely do believe with patience, with the right financial backing, and with the spirit we had in 2016 to send us up, we will be on top again. Whether that be 3 to 5 years, I don't know. But whether that be earlier, I'll be happy with that. But I think we just have to believe.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And just on the 3 to 5 years thing, I think people have read it wrong. I think people have read into it wrong, because the exact quote, I believe, was something like, in 3 to 5 years, we want to be challenging at the top of the championship. I don't think that means that for 2 of those 3 years, we want to be at the bottom of the championship. And I think that's sort of what people have interpreted it as. I think, yeah, it's not great. We were in the Premier League, and it's not often you see something happen like this. Obviously, it's a big one, Sunderland. I think Hull didn't do well. Obviously, Hull haven't done well since coming down. Bradford, if you look back quite a while. So it's not the most uncommon thing for a club to struggle significantly after coming down. But I really don't.
If you go back quite a while, Wolves as well.
Yeah, that's another one. There's a lot of evidence of it, and I don't think it's too outrageous of a comment to make to say that we want to be there in 3 to 5 years. I'd get it if they said that we didn't want to be there and we just want to. But it shows that we do have some sort of ambition, and perhaps they just try to subvert expectations by giving it quite a fairly long seeming time frame. But say in 3 years we are looking at a playoff, and we are booking our tickets to Wembley, I don't think we'll be having a problem with it, having to wait a little bit of time. But I totally do get people's frustrations. I know there's a lot of frustrated people because we were in the Premier League and it is tough to accept. But perhaps it's just cup half full, cup half empty sort of thing. But with that, I believe that is everything for today. So thank you so much for watching this weekly review. What we do in this little international break is still up in arms a little bit, but if not, we will see you next for our weekly review of the Brentford game and whatever happens that week. Enjoy the international break, everyone. Like, subscribe, share it around. We're getting ever closer, as I always say, to 100, and we really do want to reach that goal. So thank you so much again for watching, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.